The royal family has once again entered a moment of reflection and transition. On September 4th, 2025, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, passed away peacefully at Kensington Palace at the age of 92. Her departure not only marks the end of an era, but also serves as a turning point for the future of the monarchy. Known for her decades of quiet service, tireless charity work, and her familiar presence at Wimbledon, where she presented trophies to the champions, the Duchess leaves behind a legacy defined by humility and dedication. Before we dive deeper into her extraordinary life and the impact her passing will have on the royal family, let me pause for just a moment. If you care about thoughtful insights into the royal family, untold stories that don't always make the headlines, and a closer look at how history is being written right now, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. It only takes a second, and by doing so, you'll never miss an update as we continue to cover these significant events. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button now, and join our growing community of viewers who want more than just quick news. They want context, meaning, and understanding. Now let's return to the Duchess of Kent. Hers was a story not of glittering spotlight, but of quiet influence. Married to Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, in 1961, she entered the royal family at a time of immense change, when duty and tradition still overshadowed the private lives of those who married into the monarchy. Rather than competing for attention or striving for the public gaze, she instead chose a different path. She became known as a steady, hard-working royal, pouring her energy into causes that mattered to her: education, music, and community service. Unlike some members of the family who became household names for their dramatic public roles, the Duchess preferred to serve in ways that often went unnoticed by the broader public but were deeply appreciated by those she helped. Her championing of music education, for example, opened doors for countless young people who may never have otherwise had access to instruments or tuition. Through her charitable efforts, she reminded the nation, and even her fellow royals, that service is not measured by headlines or applause, but by lasting impact on lives. Her life of service, lived with dignity and modesty, made her a quiet yet powerful role model. And it is exactly this understated strength that continues to shape how the younger generation of royals views their own responsibilities. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Duchess of Kent's life is the close, almost familial bond she forged with the Prince and Princess of Wales. While she never sought to dominate the royal stage, she became what many inside the palace describe as a wise aunt figure to Prince William. For a young man who grew up under extraordinary pressures, the scrutiny of the press, the weight of expectation, and the personal tragedy of losing his mother, the Duchess provided something rare: a calm, reassuring voice that came without judgment. Over the years, William has often been described as someone deeply conscious of the balance between personal happiness and public duty. Insiders point to the Duchess as one of the key figures who helped him navigate that fine line. She encouraged him to remember that while the crown is built on responsibility, a monarch who forgets their humanity loses something essential. It was advice born from her own life. She understood that marriage into the royal family required both strength and sacrifice, and she spoke candidly to William about the difficulties of balancing two worlds: the world of private family life and the relentless demands of duty. Her bond extended just as meaningfully to Catherine. In fact, many close observers note that some of the Princess of Wales's earliest charitable interests, particularly in education and the arts, was shaped by conversations and mentorship from the Duchess. Catherine's patronages around children's mental health and early development have always drawn headlines, but what often goes unreported is how her curiosity about music and teaching was fueled by the Duchess's lifelong passion for those causes. That quiet influence helped Catherine carve out a path that felt authentic to her, one that blends her natural empathy with a strategic focus on the next generation. When Prince George was christened in 2013, the Duchess of Kent was there, not in the public spotlight, but in the background as a steady family presence. To the outside world, her attendance may have looked routine, but to the Wales family, it was a mark of continuity, a sign that she was still a guiding figure in their lives. These moments of quiet togetherness built a foundation of trust, and William and Catherine leaned on her as they grew into their roles as senior royals. What set her apart in the eyes of the younger generation was not grandeur, but perspective. She had lived through decades of royal highs and lows, from the triumphs of national unity to the turbulence of scandals and controversies. She understood the machinery of the monarchy, but also its vulnerabilities, and rather than deliver advice in abstract terms, she spoke from lived experience about the strains of public marriage, the scrutiny of the media, and the sacrifices required to endure in the long run. That level of guidance was not only comforting to William and Catherine, it was transformative. In her presence, they found a reminder that monarchy is not about perfection, but about resilience, continuity, and service. With her passing, that source of wisdom is gone, and for the Waleses, it is both a personal loss and a symbolic one, underscoring the reality that they must now step forward with fewer guides to lean on. The influence of the Duchess of Kent on the Wales family cannot be overstated. In many ways, she became a living bridge between the traditions of the older monarchy and the aspirations of the modern royal household. Her conversations with William and Catherine went beyond the ceremonial aspects of duty. They touched on the everyday realities of what it meant to be a spouse, a parent, and a public servant all at once. For Catherine especially, the Duchess served as a model of balance. While Catherine entered royal life in the 21st century, with social media and 24-hour news cycles magnifying every gesture, the Duchess entered during Camilla, during a period when the monarchy was still buffered by distance and deference. Yet despite those differences in era, their struggles were not so different. Both women faced the challenge of marrying into an institution that demands loyalty, composure, and self-sacrifice. The Duchess shared her personal reflections on those early days of adjustment, often reminding Catherine that no amount of preparation can fully shield someone from the weight of public life. But she also offered reassurance. With patience, grace, and a strong sense of self, it was possible to carve out a role that felt both dutiful and authentic. Music education remained one of the strongest threads connecting them. Catherine's visible interest in using music as a tool for early childhood development has roots in the Duchess's lifelong advocacy for the arts. Stories circulated within palace circles that the Duchess often sent Catherine articles, programme notes, or personal reflections on the power of music in shaping young minds. These private exchanges left an imprint on Catherine's understanding of how culture, creativity, and well-being intersect, an approach that has since defined much of her charitable platform. The Duchess was also present during some of the Wales family's most tender milestones. At Prince George's christening, her presence was a reminder of family solidarity. At private gatherings, she was said to be one of the few senior royals who would sit with Catherine, not to advise her formally, but simply to listen, to share, and to normalise the challenges of raising children under constant public scrutiny. For William, she became something of a confidant, someone who understood the pressures without amplifying them. This influence extended even into how the Wales family handled adversity. When the press became relentless, or when public expectation weighed heavily, the Duchess's words often came back to them. Duty can only be endured if it is also shared. That simple phrase underscored her philosophy, that the monarchy's survival depends not on individuals carrying impossible burdens alone, but on families, on partnerships, and on mutual support. Her absence now leaves a profound void. For William and Catherine, it marks the loss of someone who not only advised them, but also embodied the quiet strength they aspire to project. Yet in another sense, her example lives on through their work. Every time Catherine launches a project tied to education or the arts, or every time William speaks about balancing service with family life, the echoes of the Duchess's mentorship can be heard. As the Duchess of Kent gradually stepped back from public life in 2015, her role within the royal family shifted from visible duties to private influence. Even in retirement, she remained closely connected to the younger generation of royals, quietly offering support and guidance until her health began to decline. For William and Catherine, her presence was a reminder that service to the crown does not end when one leaves the spotlight. It endures through example, values, and the wisdom passed down across generations. But with her passing, something larger is now unfolding within the monarchy. Insiders report that her death has acted as a catalyst, pushing William and Catherine to accelerate their preparations for the throne. While they have long been aware of their future roles, the loss of such a steady family figure has heightened the urgency of their mission. The sense is that the buffer of elders, those who once guided and steadied them, is thinning. The responsibility is now theirs to carry. and her passing has underscored the reality that the next chapter belongs to them. This comes at a time when the number of working royals has already been shrinking. The Queen's passing, the Duke of Edinburgh's absence, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex stepping back, and the Duke of York's removal from public duties all have contributed to a noticeable reduction in the pool of active senior royals. The result is increased pressure on William and Catherine, who alongside King Charles and Queen Camilla now represent the visible front line of the monarchy. The Duchess of Kent's death further highlights this narrowing circle, intensifying the weight of expectation placed squarely on the Prince and Princess of Wales. It is a heavy mantle to carry, yet one that William and Catherine appear determined to embrace. Their official tribute to the Duchess reflected this blend of personal grief and renewed purpose. In their statement, they described her as deeply missed, but more than that, they emphasised the lessons they learned from her empathy, her to guide without fanfare, and her steadfast example of service. These qualities, they suggested, will continue to shape their approach as they take on more responsibility for the monarchy's future. Observers note that in the days following her passing, the Wales family has been noticeably more visible and purposeful in their engagements. From school visits to environmental initiatives, they are not simply carrying on business as usual, they are projecting an image of a monarchy preparing for transition. This is not about ceremonial pageantry, but about demonstrating relevance and resilience at a time when the institution is under both scrutiny and expectation. In many ways, the Duchess's death has drawn a line between eras, the generation that quietly carried tradition forward, and the new generation now stepping into leadership with a fresh vision. For William and Catherine, it is both a loss and a call to action, a reminder that the future of the monarchy is no longer a distant concept, but an urgent responsibility they must now shoulder. The death of the Duchess of Kent is not only a personal loss for the royal family, it is a moment of public and historical significance. Her life, lived largely outside the spotlight, has nonetheless cast a long shadow over the direction of the monarchy. And now, her passing has become a defining marker in what many historians and commentators are already calling a generational shift. What is particularly striking is how William and Catherine seem to be channeling her influence into the modernisation of the institution. The Duchess was never one for pomp or spectacle. Her approach to royal life was modest, grounded, and focused on people rather than ceremony. That quiet philosophy has clearly shaped how the Prince and Princess of Wales envision their own future reign. They are pursuing a monarchy that is leaner, less about grandiosity, and more about authenticity and accessibility. Their causes reflect this: environmental protection, mental health awareness, early childhood education, and fiscal responsibility are not ceremonial pursuits. They are practical, forward-looking, and deeply connected to the lives of ordinary people. And that is precisely the point. In a world where the monarchy's relevance is often questioned, William and Catherine are steering it toward a role that resonates with contemporary society. By putting service before spectacle, they are crafting a vision of leadership that aligns with the values of a new generation. Public sentiment appears to be on their side. Early polls and expert analyses suggest growing support for this streamlined approach, one that prioritises substance over ceremony. While there will always be critics of the monarchy, there is a sense that the Waleses are shaping it into something that can endure, not through excess, but through connection, empathy, and authenticity. In this way, the Duchess of Kent's death has not only closed a chapter of royal history, but has also accelerated the momentum of change. Her passing highlights how fragile the monarchy's continuity can feel when long-serving figures leave the stage. Yet it also underscores the resilience of the institution when new leaders step forward with clarity of purpose. William and Catherine are not waiting for the throne to fall into their hands by default. They are actively preparing for it, shaping themselves and the monarchy in a way that feels both modern and meaningful. In the end, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, will be remembered for more than her quiet service and familiar presence at Wimbledon. She will be remembered as a mentor, a guide, and an inspiration whose understated approach has profoundly influenced the heirs to the throne. Her death is not just the end of a life well lived, it is a turning point that has brought into sharper focus the future of the monarchy itself. And as William and Catherine step more fully into that future, they carry her lessons with them, ensuring that her legacy endures not in ceremony, but in the very heart of service.